Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. And so, we're in the middle of a second COVID wave that is yielding more cases than the first wave, as expected. Epidemiologists said many months ago that second waves tend to be worse than the first. Heading towards a winter, which, with the Conservatives' neglect of the NHS over the last decade, is always a heartbreaking time for hospitals and GP surgeries. We're going to need a lot more PPE in care homes and hospitals. That much is clear. So now seems a good time to catch up on the latest government sabotage in this regard, with dodgy contracts and misplaced tax hikes. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So a couple of things here. New details have emerged of a dodgy PPE contract given to a company that, of course, has nothing to do with PPE manufacturer or supply. And that I want to go through that. But there's also been a bit of a side issue as well, which is relevant in terms of the cost of PPE, because securing supplies of PPE, particularly when there's such high demand globally, is really important. But then you also have to consider the cost for those who have to buy it. Earlier this year, the Treasury scrapped VAT on PPE. Okay, good. That will certainly help, because we've got a situation where not only frontline healthcare staff need much more PPE, but even ordinary citizens need to wear some when we go about our business, if we go shopping, something like that. So this sounded like one of the very few good moves from the government during this pandemic. There haven't been many. There's been the odd one, and this was one of them. It made sense. But here's the thing. They're putting it back up again. Unless someone manages to change the government's mind, the cost of PPE is going to increase again as a direct result of a government policy, nothing to do with supply and demand, as a government policy at the end of this week. Now, I'm going to hope this is just an example of incompetence in Rishi Sunak's department and that the VAT cut will be extended against this week. Because what happened is they put it in place, I think it was May, and then about a month later they extended it until the end of October. Now, it could just be that someone hasn't paid attention and it just needs extending again, and they just haven't done that. And people will point it out to them and go, oh yeah, good idea. So hopefully that won't be a major issue. But if it's not, if it's not extended again this week, it will be another case of the government thinking they can get away with another dreadful policy just because it'll fly under the media's radar when they've got so many other bigger fish to fry. Of course, VAT on PPE is small fry compared to the money wasted on contracts for PPE that didn't even supply us with the PPE we needed. So using the emergency COVID power, Boris Johnson's government have been awarding very large contracts for PPE and other COVID-related goods and services without putting it out for the normal tender process. So that it hasn't been a case of, here's a contract, would suitable companies like to bid for it? That hasn't been the case. Now, in theory, there's nothing wrong with this idea because it should have allowed us to get those goods and services more quickly. That was the stated purpose of these emergency measures, these emergency procedures. In reality, however, what it's meant is that the government have just spent vast sums of public money on not a lot. The companies they've been using have tended to include those with no proven capacity to even deliver on the contracts, but they have been donating to the Tory party. We've had manufacturers and suppliers of PPE in this country, British-based companies, not getting contracts, fulfilling contracts for other countries. They've been producing and supplying other countries, not ours, because they were not given contracts. So instead, our money went to companies like Pest Fix, which I've talked about before, and we're going to be talking about again. To hide the worst of the corruption as well, the government also failed to publish details of the contracts. This is unlawful. Nothing to do with the emergency powers. The emergency powers allowed the government to give these contracts to basically whoever they liked, but it didn't mean that they didn't have to publish the details of the contracts. They still had to do that within 30 days. They've not been doing that. The emergency powers did not give Johnson a pass on that. But legal action by groups, particularly the Good Law Project, they've been very robust on this. And they've been taking legal action, and very slowly some of these contracts are being published now. And one of them that the Good Law Project were reporting on last week includes a £168.5 million contract for Pest Fix. You know, the pest control company that employs a handful of people. It's based in a little warehouse. Small number of people. I think it's about 16 people they employ. Don't quote me on that. It's a very small number, though, for such a large contract. And it's not just... Because this isn't just a company that doesn't make or supply PPE, but it's a small company that doesn't make or supply PPE being given £168.5 million to supply different types of face masks. That was what this particular contract for. There are others as well that still haven't been published. So what was the justification for awarding such a massive contract to a tiny company with no experience whatsoever of fulfilling a contract, not only of this scale, but of this type? Well, apparently, the company director's wife is a vet. So, you know, well, there we go. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? She's a vet, so she'll be good at this sort of thing. And this person's wife has family in China. Oh, China makes face masks, so, you know, that'll be really good. Yeah, okay. I strongly suspect the actual reason is more to do with their donations to the Tory party, but there you are. That's just my idea. But that sort of thing, of course, means that the contract should never have been awarded to them. You know, if you find this thing out when the contract is awarded, as we did, we say, well, they're clearly unsuitable. But time has passed now. We're able to look at whether or not they fulfilled it. After all, if this tiny pest control firm actually did manage to source and deliver the PPE required of the contract, and it was all fine and dandy and even turned out to be reasonable value for money, then there's nothing more to complain about, is there? In fact, it might even seem that Matt Hancock is a secret genius. The Health Secretary saw a diamond in the rough regarding this unlikely supplier of face masks. I'm sure it will come as a massive surprise to everyone to learn that this did not occur. The contract was for the delivery of 3 types of face mask, as may be seen from the contract, which I'll link in the description below. I'm not up on types of face mask. Type IIR masks, I'm not sure what they are, but then more familiar to us will be FFP2 masks and FFP3 masks. Now, the Good Law Project recently drawn attention to a couple of letters from Pest Fix withdrawing masks. So there was a letter withdrawing their FFP3 masks because it turned out they were not FFP3 masks. They were actually only FFP1 masks. Then another recall notice, this time for their FFP2 masks because, you guessed it, these were also FFP1 masks as well. Now, there are a few concerns here. The first of which, this means that they did not inspect the goods that they bought before distributing them, or they have so little expertise in this matter, they hadn't the capacity to inspect them. They couldn't even open a box, look at one and go, that's not the right mask, because they don't know. That is almost certainly what has happened. They fundamentally do not know what they're dealing with. They've ordered a thing and they've taken receipt of it and they've just passed it on because they wouldn't know what they're looking for anyway. Remember, this is a recall notice. It means it was already distributed to places. Presumably, some of the places that they were distributed to recognised that they were wrong ones and drew their attention to it. So they'd already been sent out to the people who needed them. The second concern is the company or the companies who were supplying Pest Fix were not trustworthy. So either they were deliberately supplying the wrong masks or they didn't have the quality assurance in place themselves to be able to check. And 3, so these masks were used in situations where any old face mask won't do. This isn't for people going around doing the shopping. These are masks that require FFP2 or FFP3 masks. They're required in order to protect lives. And they were not up to standard. They were not the right masks. That means that lives have been put at risk. Some lives may therefore have been lost as a direct result of this. And bear something else in mind. So when the government talk about how much money they've spent on PPE and how many items of PPE they've been supplying, they are counting all of this. All of this money and all of this equipment that had to be recalled. They're counting all of that. You know, and this is just one example of PPE that was ordered but never supplied. And I'm not even saying we'll probably find out at the end of this was a whole raft of it. There have already been cases where we've known that PPE that we have bought was not the right type. And the government are not dealing with this either. I mean, if you award a contract properly, genuinely, to who you think will do the best job of fulfilling it, and that contract is not properly fulfilled, you take action. You insist that the correct equipment is delivered. You may even impose financial penalties. If the company is dragging their feet on this, you take them to court for breach of contract. When you award, however, a contract as a bung for party donations, you do nothing. You might phone them up and say, look, this isn't really good enough, is it? Can you sort it out, please? And they'll go, yeah, we're on to it. Yeah, thanks very much. And that's it. You don't take any actual action because the purpose of the contract wasn't for PPE. It was twofold. It was to offer a huge return on Tory donations to encourage them to donate in the future, and to be able to tell the public how much the government spent on PPE and how many items of PPE it's been supplying. So if there's not enough PPE, it's not our fault. We've been supplying loads of it. That's all they want to know. They don't care whether the PPE arrives or is fit for purpose, just so long as they can say they got it. After all, the records will show that the government has spent billions on PPE. I mean, we haven't received an awful lot of it, but the records are less interested in recording that. All the money is spent, goods have been received, all recorded. That the goods turned out to be incorrect does not lead to a retrospective correction of the records necessarily, does it? That's the problem. But anyway, there we go. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.